Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel, Brianna's Bachelor Breakdown. Thanks so much for tuning in. Today we're going to get into episode 9 of Katie's season, otherwise known as Hometowns. There's a lot to unpack here, so let's just get straight to it. So first of all, we have Blake, who, as we know, and if we didn't before, he certainly made it very clear, who is from Canada. So they have their whole Canadian day, they're drinking the syrup, they're wearing the t-shirts. They're just having fun. It's always lighthearted and fun with Blake. There's not really too much significant that advances their relationship here at this point, but there's also nothing negative to take away from Blake's hometown date that he planned. I thought it was very thoughtful. We also get some foreshadowing of Greg. He's being a little bit of a drama queen, going out onto the balcony and watching their date for no reason. Unclear if that was of his own doing or if that was more of a producer being like, hey, come out here, look at the view. Oh, look, we didn't know Katie and Blake were out here because I feel like at this point, usually the guys are more isolated from each other when it's down to the final 3 and 4 and 2. They don't really interact with each other too much. They are more so in their own rooms. There's not as many group dynamics. So it's definitely out of character or not something common for Greg to have seen that date that they were on. And that just spells or gives us a clue into what will come up later in the episode. Then we go into Blake's night portion, meeting with his family. Before we get into that, y'all know I have to, unpack the outfits. Catherine rolled up, looking like she was in 7th grade. She had the dress, which in and of itself was fine. I like a black dress, can't go wrong, fine. But then she decided that it was necessary to add this pink, shoulder short, cropped, hot pink bubblegum cardigan. And it looked like she was, 12 years old going to Sunday school. It was just very weird, unclear who or what told her that was a good look. I feel like at this point, her stylist took the check and said, you know what, I'm going home. Sis is not listening to me. Either that or she is just really, getting all of her worst outfits out in the last stretch of the show. Maybe she is just so fed up with Katie for whatever beef it seems like they have that she's just like, I'm just gonna dress you poorly and that's just gonna be that. I'm gonna get paid no matter what. Unclear here. I hope we can clean it up, but I don't have much hope. Blake's mom also served us a look. She was there with her leather pants. She was kind of posing on the couch a little bit. Sis really got up and said, tonight I'm going to be on TV, America's prime time, 8 o'clock. Everyone's going to see me. Catch me if you can. Like, she really was out here. She knew what she did what she came to do. And I'm not mad at it. The rest of his family, including his mom, also had on collared shirts. For some reason the word that came to my head was safari when I watched it. They were just very neutral colors, and maybe it's because Blake works in his wildlife career or whatever, but it was just very khaki. I don't know how to describe it, but it all looked like they were ready to just go hiking, go out and see some wildlife. Maybe they're all into animals and that's just all what they normally wear. But it was just an interesting pattern that I noticed. So anyway, moving past that, then we get into the actual content with Blake and his family. He, of course, I don't know why I was surprised. I thought for some reason he might not be as cringy as we have learned that he is with Katie and the guys. I thought for some reason maybe he would not be that way with his family, but that's on me. I should not have assumed that because the first thing out of his mouth, talking to his own mom, and he's like, yeah, the physical connection that we have is 1,000% there. Okay, Blake, all right. Cool. I don't know if that's something you need to write home to mom about, but here we are. You said it. And that is how he felt like he needed to introduce the woman that he is potentially going to propose to. So there's not much more to say on that. We had the typical conversations with Katie and the mom, Blake and the sister. One thing that I really liked about the sister is that she was calling Blake out on his dating pattern, something that I feel like all of Bachelor Nation has noticed, how he was very into Claire. And then when Claire left, he was like, I don't know if I can ever love again, da-da-da-da. Tayshia came, very into Tayshia, same thing. He was beaten up when he was eliminated. Now he's coming to Katie's season. He's like, I'm here for you and only you. We have such a connection, which they do. I'm not taking that away from him, but it's just very it's just unclear what he actually goes for and how genuine all of it actually is. So I liked the sister was calling him out on it. He really did not have a response to what she was saying because there's really nothing to say because it was facts. So all he could really do and all he did do was pretty much just defend himself and defend how strong his feelings are for Katie, which, like I said, it's evident that they have a connection. So I'm not doubting that he really feels a way about her. And he might just be one of those people who can easily connect with a lot of different people. Some people are like that. Some people, have many different passionate, strong relationships throughout their lifetime. And maybe Blake is just one of those people. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not a good look when you're on this type of show, when it's supposed to be very narrow focused and you're only here for this one person. It's just not, he's not compatible with the framework of this show. So then after the whole meet and greet, we see a little impromptu hockey game between Katie and Blake's family. It's cute. It kind of reminded me of when Michelle and her parents played basketball with Matt after her hometown date. And as we all know, it did not turn out well for her in the end. So I always it warms my heart when I see these natural moments between the lead and the family, because it makes me feel okay, this is not just some forced conversation that the producers are telling everyone to have. This is actually probably what it would look like if you were to join this family. But I hate getting that invested if it's gonna be for no reason. So I really hope that it was worth the family's time to have that cute little activity with Katie. So wrapping up the night, Blake's big story point is that he didn't say I love you, or that he doesn't feel that he's ready to say I love you. His whole family was kind of pressing him why aren't you saying it, da 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 da. And he is, if he's not currently there, he's nearly there, but he just can't make that leap. Which I understand why. Obviously it's more scary to be vulnerable in this type of environment, I feel than in real life, because in the back of your head, if it doesn't work out for you, you're always oh, it was someone else, And so that's how he's feeling. It's unclear if Katie even noticed that she's not getting that feedback or that validation from Blake. It's unclear if she knows that he's not checking in with her about his feelings in that sense, because as we see later in the episode, she has her sights set on someone else. I don't know where that leaves Blake. Maybe it was good for him to not really make that leap of faith quite yet, because we don't really know where Katie's gonna land on everything. So then we close out Blake's hometown. The next day we go into Justin's hometown. We open it up with a phone call between him and his parents, who announced that they will not be joining Justin for the hometown date. This honestly, at least in my memory, might be a Bachelor first. The Bachelor is always saying this never before seen, unprecedented drama. But honestly, this might be, I don't remember ever seeing someone whose family doesn't come. We've seen blended families or families and family friends, but I've never seen at least not one family member show up to meet the lead. I think it would have been a lot more impactful had Justin been someone that the audience is invested in, that Katie herself is invested in, because I don't think that it is going to improve or deduct from his chances either way. I feel Katie was just going there to go there. I don't think meeting his parents would have suddenly formed a connection between them. But it is unfortunate because it's unclear if Justin realizes that they don't have that much of a connection, because he seemed pretty annoyed at his parents, which I understand because that is annoying. But he might think that it will sway his chances. I think maybe looking back, watching the season back, he might realize like that really had nothing to do with it. But we don't know. Unclear. Either way, they don't come. So Justin proceeds on. He has a whole Baltimore day. It was really cute. I think I liked his hometown the best, honestly, because he seemed kind of the most enthusiastic about his hometown, where he was from. He seemed really excited to show her all the sights, and I think he's the one. I liked his humor. You know, I liked his sarcasm. He was embracing like Baltimore, New Mexico. Like, you can smell the Chesapeake Bay off of this dust trail. You know, like, I felt like he was really just going with the flow, having a good time. So they have their horse and carriage ride. They have a makeshift welcome to Baltimore sign that they take some pictures in front of. They have a seafood boil. So just fun, you know, hanging out. I feel like that is something that you could easily replicate in a real life dating situation. Like, those are probably activities that you would do. Were you visiting each other if you were in a real relationship, or if they decided for some reason to live in Baltimore. So then we get to the night portion of Justin's hometown. Katie, again, rolls up. Sis, this time, is wearing a white sweater that has some 3D elements for us. You know, she's really trying to pop across our screens. You know, she has these little balls coming off that unclear, you know, why they were there. I was not a fan. I'm not really a fan of, you know, interactive clothing unless it's for a purpose, you know, like a Halloween costume or a Christmas sweater, or, you know, something where it makes sense for me to interact with a piece of clothing. Otherwise, I want it to be 2D. I want it to be stagnant. I don't need my clothes popping out at me. But Katie clearly feels different. She likes to, you know, have a little party with her clothes. I didn't really like her hair in this scene. She just had a regular ponytail, but it looked very rushed in terms of pulling it up. Like, it was kind of stringy. I felt like if she had taken some more time to kind of brush it back, been a little more smooth with it, it wouldn't have made an impression on me, because a ponytail is such a basic hairstyle. I don't really know where she went wrong with it, but she seems to have two extremes. You know, she either has the very poofy, like, bridal-esque ponytail, or she has this, like, stringy, like, rushed, putting it together type of vibe. So it was just altogether very unclear what was going on. But hey, I've come to expect that from Catherine. I'm not going to say I've accepted it because I haven't. I still believe that we can get this together, but I don't know if that will happen. We go into the hometown. We meet the friends. I'm glad that Justin did have someone to show up for him. And it was nice seeing him with his friends. You know, that's a very real part of his life as well, as he was explaining. Like, that is part of home. It's good that they came. Katie and Justin were very much so gassing their relationship. You know, they were talking about this. They've always had a connection. Apparently, they were playing up the whole Justin was my first kiss type of moment. When we met each other, we got right to it. Like, we really sat down and figured out who each other were. And the whole time I was like, did you? Though, like, did you? Because if they did, this has got to be the worst editing the producers have ever done. But I truly do not believe that that is the case. I truly just believe they are just saying whatever they need to say for a reason that is unknown to me. Because she could have had Andrew. I'm still not over that. She could have had Andrew here in this hometown. They could have been talking about their connection that actually was there from day one. I don't know why she kept Justin to make up this connection that never existed. It currently does not exist. But listen, it's not my journey. It's Katie's journey. So one scene that really stuck out to me from Justin's hometown is when he was talking to the friend, Herb. He was, you know, Justin was kind of telling him, I really feel it with this girl. Like, I really see it going all the way. Da, 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 da. Herb was very unmoved. His face, just blank expression. Like, he was not buying it. He was not too invested in what was coming out of Justin's mouth. In fact, at the end, he said, if this is it, this is it. And I feel like when you are telling someone that you are in love with someone, you know, you're telling your best friend now, you're saying, this is the person I want to propose to, I want to marry. Like, that's not really the type of reaction you want to hear from your best friend. It's kind of like when someone says, if you like it, I love it, which basically means like, listen, couldn't be me. You know, I feel like that's what Herb is saying. Like, okay, bro, like, you're clearly in too deep at this point. I'm not going to talk you out of it, but I can see through it. And I hope you will soon see through it as well before you make some type of permanent decision with this girl. But also anything I say at this point that's to the contrary of what you're saying is going to fall on deaf ears. So I might as well, it's safer for our friendship, for our peace, for my sanity to just act like I'm in full support, just go with the flow and be there to catch you if and when you fall. I think that's all you really can do as a friend in this situation, but it was really just funny to watch him kind of be like, listen, you got it. Afterwards, we go to a little fire pit. Justin, to me, it was a very unromantic way of him saying that he is falling in love with Katie. He kind of was like, well, I can't control my feelings, which to me makes it sound like if I could control it, I would want to feel differently. Like if someone was telling me they're in love with me and they're like, you know what? I tried to fight it. I can't control it. I'm in love. It's kind of like, well, you know, if you don't want to be in love, but you feel like your heart or your mind is bringing you there, like, resolve that. Like, I don't want you to force yourself to do something that I'm not asking you to do. But, you know, either way, we know that, again, similar to the parents thing, is not going to improve his chances, is not going to deduct his chances. It's just kind of like, I feel like they're very neutral. Anything he says or does is gonna leave him at the same place at the end where he always was going to be. So, you know, I think Katie received it well. She was kind of like, okay, like, that's cool. And then they went about their business. So, last but not least, we have Mr. Gregory, who is from New Jersey. That was news to me. I don't know if I had never read his little tagline with the gold at the bottom that says their information, or I don't know. But I was not aware of that was his home state. He didn't really specify the town. They go on a tandem bike ride. You know, they have pork rolls, Italian ice, a bouncy castle. It was, you know, it was fun. It felt a little random and like just like jumbled a bit, but it was, I'm sure they had a good time. And then at the end, they go play a little one-on-one basketball, which actually really touched me because Greg kind of explained how his dad used to be his basketball coach growing up. And that meant a lot to him, and that he hadn't played, you know, since his dad passed. So I could tell that it was really important to him that he shared that with Katie. It was also kind of a call back to their first one-on-one when Katie took him camping and fishing, and she did all the things with Greg that she had done with her late father. So it was really nice that they both feel comfortable enough with each other to kind of share those very intimate moments with each other and kind of support each other in a healthy way through their grief of this common person in their life that they both have lost and that they're both missing. We encounter another rain shower for absolutely no reason. I don't know why that happened, but it was even worse, I feel like, because at least at the first time that it happened, it was at the end of the night. So there was no activities that were going to be happening afterwards. You got wet, you got dirty, you go home, take a shower, go to bed, done. Now it's like you're in the middle of the date. So you just got wet and rainy. You got to go home. You got to wash a shower. You got to wash your hair. You got to shower. You got to do all this extra stuff to get ready for the night portion of the date that you wouldn't have had to do if you did not get rained on for literally no reason. And Katie, she really looked at this man and said, does it rain in New Jersey? New Jersey is not on another planet. It's not on another, like, continent even. Like, yes, ma'am. It does rain. It rains anywhere in the United States or in the world for that matter. So That's beyond me. It's above me. I don't know why they like to be in the rain. I don't know why they can't comprehend that different places have similar weather patterns. It's not for me to understand. And that is what I have concluded. And I'm going to move on from that, because the longer I talk about it, the more riled up it'll make me. So we got a wholesome family vibe from Greg. I really liked his home videos that his siblings sent in. That was really nice, very thoughtful. You can tell that he's a huge part of their lives, as they all, verbally said. And it was also really cute to see all the nieces and the nephews, and as well as the impact that it had on Greg, seeing all these people, taking time out of their day to record something for him. It was just really nice. It was very wholesome. It was you could tell there was a lot of love in the room, a lot of warmth. And everyone, including especially Greg, kept saying that he hadn't been this happy in years. And it was because of Katie, which is a very impactful statement. Even his brother mentioned that it was really impressive that he managed to open up to Katie about his dad, because that was something that they, even as brothers, had not yet discussed or broken the ice on. Which kind of like, Greg, you might want to process this, on your own or outside of just this relationship. But I'm also glad that he has found a space where he feels safe and comfortable, because maybe he is missing that in his life. Maybe he doesn't feel like he does have anyone to confide in. So overall, I was happy. It was pleasant to see this specific portion of the night. After that, as things are wrapping up, Greg in his confessionals, he's talking about how he's in love with Katie and he's feeling a little insecure about not getting that reciprocation or hearing any sort of checkpoint about where she's at with her feelings. So, they sit down on the couch and he kind of lays everything out on the line. I honestly was very impressed, because I feel like in the past, he, in his mind, has said the same things, but it hasn't come across. He has not articulated himself as well as he did during this scene. Usually he just kind of alludes to his feelings, or he'll say it, but in a very downplayed sort of way. So I really appreciated, and I was really impressed by his vulnerability and his ability to voice exactly how he was feeling, how Katie makes him feel, how excited he is about their future. I thought it was a very nice moment coming from him. I thought it seemed as though his family gave him a lot of confidence. He was telling all of them that she was the one, and he was ready to, propose to her. They had their logistics worked out and everything. So I think it was good for Greg to see his family and kind of get that extra jolt that he needed to kind of push him over the line and get him to say those things that were so important to him. But then after Greg kind of lays everything out for Katie, her response is, "I just love looking at you," which turns a corner. It takes the conversation down a different path. And this is where I will say I can understand why he felt slighted. This man really just poured his heart out, laid everything out on the table, and all Katie has to say is, "I love looking at you." Something that surface level has nothing to do with what he's talking about. It's not indicating that she heard him. She's not providing any reassurance or validation, reciprocation. I understand that she has this rule that she set up for herself, that she's not going to tell anyone until the end or until the final person how she's feeling and that she's in love with them. But I feel like if she is feeling something similar, or if she does have deep feelings for Greg, there's a way to express that without also violating her boundaries, right? She could have said in other words how she felt. She could have said, "I have really deep feelings for you. I have really strong feelings for you. I can picture a future with you." She could have laid it out that way. She could have expressed it with physical touch. She could have given him a nice long hug, given him a kiss, a smile didn't even really cross her face. So I feel like there were other ways that she could have filled him up while also respecting her boundaries. So I do see where she could have handled that better. And also I do see why that flipped such a switch in Greg. On the flip side of that I feel like Greg could have done better in that situation, is he began to get a little condescending, you know. He immediately put on his little sad boy Greg face, and Katie assumed the role of walking him through his feelings again, which she has done pretty much through every interaction that they've had this season. And she was like, you know what, like, you're really sad. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to help you out of this emotion that you're feeling right now. And he was just kind of like, why do you think I'm sad? And she was like, well, because this sucks. And he was like, what sucks? You know, it was just very like condescending, very like elementary. Like, that's how I would kind of talk to a little kid if I was trying to get them to grasp a complex topic. You know, like, Katie is a grown woman. She can clearly articulate and see with her own eyes that you feel the type of way, Gregory, but it's not her responsibility to put those words in your mouth and express how you're feeling. Like, you are feeling that way. Even if you're feeling that way as a reaction of what Katie did, it's still not her responsibility to voice how you are feeling, because she's not feeling that way. So if you want her to know how you are feeling, it is on you to articulate that. So I felt like he definitely could have handled that better. I feel like it was just his in the moment reaction. Like, he was so flustered, overwhelmed because he didn't get that reciprocation he wants. So I understand that's why he did it. But I feel like looking back, that might be something he can work on. And then going ahead, you know, I felt like Greg, he started off with a justifiable or fair point. You know, he was asking for validation, which I understand. And I think he's well within his rights to ask for, especially after she just met his whole entire family. Like, I get that. But then it turns into him asking for certainty. You know, like when they go outside in the dark, he was like, I don't know how you don't know it's us at this point, which, like, I don't think it's fair for him to say. You know, like, it's one thing to be like, I want to know how you feel. But in this type of situation and this type of setup, there's really nothing more that she can give without it being unfair to the other guys, which she's still well within her right to explore those connections. You know, she has these other guys here for a reason, and she is allowed to use all the time up until that final moment to reflect, evaluate, experience those relationships to their full potential, and then make that decision. So she does not owe Greg certainty at this point at all. And I don't think it was fair for him to ask that. And I also don't think it was fair for him to use that as a point of anger or frustration. I think he should have just stuck to his original point of, I want reassurance and validation, and that might have been a more productive conversation, because I feel like ultimately in that portion of the conversation, they were both trying to communicate with each other, but I feel like they were communicating different things and they ended up missing each other. I feel like Greg was so focused on that moment. He was so in his head, and so he had envisioned himself professing his love for this girl. He envisioned her reciprocating in some way. And when she didn't, he couldn't shake that. But I feel like Katie was more focused on the bigger picture, right? Like, she kept saying, it's going to be worth it. I know it's really hard. We can get through it. Da 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 da. Like, she was more focused on the end goal, the bigger picture, where things were going to end up for them. And neither of them were hearing each other at that point. And that only led to more frustration, because they were just coming at it from totally different perspectives. And there weren't enough questions being asked. There were just assumptions and projections being made onto the other person. I think Katie was explaining herself or explaining her point in that situation, explaining, you know, what I was saying about how she's focused on the end goal. But I don't feel like Greg was doing a great job of explaining what he was trying to communicate after he expressed his love for her. Like I said, he could have said, you know what, this is what I really need in this moment. Like, I'm just looking for some validation from you. Like, I know that the end goal is important, but what I'm really focused on right now is how I feel in this moment. And I don't feel like you're in this moment with me, you know? And I feel like maybe that would have gotten through to Katie, or maybe not. But ultimately, he didn't go that route when he could have. And I feel like that only led to more frustration on both of their parts. And then finally, when Greg goes up to the hotel room, he's still on the same point, you know, that Katie didn't acknowledge him, that in his words, she mowed over, you know, what his expressing his love for her. But I feel like by the time he got to her hotel room, his mind was completely made up. And he was not open to hearing Katie's side of things, even when she did bring up valid points. You know, she explained that she was trying to do more listening than responding or reacting in that night, which, okay, that's not what Greg wanted at that moment, but that doesn't mean that that's not what she's doing. And it doesn't mean that that's not a valid behavior, you know? And she also explained to him that she was waiting until the end. And that was something the night before in that conversation that I wish Katie would have expressed, because she said it to literally everyone else. She said it to all the family members, but she didn't say it to Greg, who's probably in that situation the most important person to tell about that boundary. So I feel like she did communicate that a little bit too late, but it's still valid, you know? And by the time she did communicate it, Greg was his ears were closed. He was not open to hearing what she said. I feel like it is one of those moments, you know, when you're really mad at someone or you have a lot of frustration towards them and you plan out an argument in your head, right? You're like, this is all the things I have to say to this person. This is how I'm going to say them. This is how I'm going to take them down. I'm going to show them. But you also subconsciously, I think, or maybe consciously, will envision how the other person is going to respond. And I feel like that's exactly what Greg did in this situation. He came in with his side of the argument. And when Katie was bringing up valid points and explaining her side and saying, you know, this was my mindset during that night. This is the boundary that I have, but this is also still how I feel about you. I feel like he was not receptive to that at all, because he was just so focused on it going the way that he had planned that he didn't know how to respond when it didn't go that way. Furthermore, I feel like Katie, she did not meet his needs in that moment. That's fair to acknowledge. It's fair for Greg to feel that way. But I feel like in a relationship, when that happens, it's important, like I said earlier, if Greg feels that way, then Greg feels that way. Katie does not feel that way because she is not Greg. Katie does not know that Greg feels that way because, again, she's not Greg. So it's important for him to communicate that. And I feel like even if he's in love with her, I don't necessarily, after watching this, I don't know that he was ready for a commitment or marriage, because for a whole relationship, for the person that you thought was the one to come down to one singular moment and then crash and burn based off of one time of lack of reciprocation, I don't think it was that strong to begin with, or you are not that good of a communicator to begin with. Because while it's important to be in tune to your emotions, I think it's also just as important to, when you're not in the heat of the moment, take a step back, do some self-reflection on the relationship and say, is that behavior in character, in line with my partner? Do they normally not reciprocate me? When I open up to them, do they normally brush me off, or do they usually reassure me and this was just one-off thing? If the answer is they normally brush me off, then okay, you're better off. You should leave them alone, whatever. But we have seen this whole season, Katie has done nothing but reassure Greg every time he has this little sad puppy dog boy face. Like, he's always in his feelings, and Katie is always walking him through his feelings. So this is completely not in her character. And I think that's important to realize when you're in a relationship. And since that is the case, I think it would have been more effective and could have saved their relationship in the long run if Greg had said, hey, I didn't get what I needed in this moment. Going forward, this is what I would need from you when I am being that vulnerable with you, you know? And then it's up to the other person, it's up to Katie to accommodate that and readjust and figure out how she can honor her boundaries while still meeting Greg's needs. And if at that point, if she's unwilling or incapable of doing that, then it would be an appropriate time to reevaluate the relationship and determine if they really are a match. But I feel like Greg didn't try to do any sort of problem solving. He saw one issue and ran away from it. So that's not a very healthy attitude. And you know what? Maybe Katie is better off. Greg has not really moved me this whole season. He started to get into my heart a little bit during his hometown like date portion of it. You know, when I was talking about when they were at the New Jersey setting, and then when he was actually with his entire family, like he was warming up to me. He was making a good impression on me. But then we're right back to it. He just doesn't know how to handle his feelings. So that's just something he's gonna have to work on. And then obviously he left. Afterwards, Katie was very upset. And the final scene that we closed out on was Caitlyn kind of comforting Katie in the bathroom. And I'll just say, I went on social media, on Twitter and stuff after I watched the episode, and a lot of people are really going in on her saying, we want Chris Harrison back. Like, he would have handled this so much better. Like, this is why you shouldn't have a lead as a host. And that really astounded me, because I honestly thought she did a very good job of comforting Katie in that moment. People were saying that, you know, she was searching for words or whatever, but I had a different interpretation. I felt like she more so was being conscious to not center herself and not take up too much space during a time that's obviously very hard for Katie, which honestly is what you want from a friend or a confidant or someone that is comforting you. You don't want someone who's going to sit up there and yap your head off about like, oh, well, this is what you should do and this is my interpretation of the situation. Like, no, like, you want someone who's going to let you feel your feelings, ask the right questions, and just be there with you in that moment. So that's what I have to say. I had no issues with how Caitlyn handled the situation. I, in fact, thought she did a very good job. So I enjoyed watching that scene. That's pretty much all that I had for this episode of Brianna's Bachelor Breakdown. Don't forget to like and subscribe and come back next Wednesday for another video of this 3-hour season finale that we have been promised. So hopefully we all make our way through that, because Justin is in the final 2. I forgot to mention that. Greg, when it turned out that Greg was on his way to leave, that was the first thing out of my mouth. I was like, this means Justin is in the final 2. So that'll be very interesting to see. Let me know in the comments, what did you think of this episode? What are your predictions? How do you think it will end? What did you think of how Greg handled himself and how Katie handled herself? What was your interpretation of the situation? Let me know, and I'll see you next week.